Imagining Things by Klein, Part 2. The last time I'd been taken to the eye doctor, he had measured my vision for glasses. As I stared at the chart on the opposite wall, he would slip a lens into the mechanical device I was looking through and say, "Now, is it better this way?" He would slip in another lens. "Or this way?" He would remove the second lens. "Or hard to tell." He would do it again. "Is it better this way or this way? Or is it still hard to tell?" Tonight was a case of hard to tell. "Wheezy, there's nothing out there. It's all in your mind." "Honest?" "Believe me, you're imagining things." He gulped, seemed to relax a little. "So, it's just in my head? Trust me." "Well, alright then." He stood up. "Don't tell Mom, okay?" "Of course not." The next morning, as she was driving me to the mall to buy school clothes, with Wheezy at home blinking sleepily in front of the TV, I told Mom. The hospital where they sent him was on the other side of the country, but it could just as easily have been in another country, because for at least the first 3 weeks he was supposed to have no visitors and no communication with even family members. It sounds harsh, yeah, but I guess it was for his own good. With Wheezy gone, I set up my computer at his desk and used mine for homework and books. I piled my extra clothes on his bed. I missed Wheezy in some ways. I really did. But boy, was it good to have my own room again. Only 2 weeks had passed when I heard, from Mom, that he was going to come home. She got off the phone with a smile. "They say he's been making great progress." "Great," I groaned. The next day, when I came back from school, I saw a letter addressed to me in Wheezy's handwriting. He wasn't supposed to communicate with us, and I wondered how he'd managed to get it in the mail. Mom wouldn't be home for an hour, or 2 maybe. I took the letter into my room and read it at my desk. It was written in pencil on a piece of lined paper yanked from a notebook, leaving the 3 holes torn. "Hey bro," he wrote, "I've been thinking about what you told me. There's not much else to do here. I mean, except think and make nice for the doctors, which I'm getting very good at. I know just what to tell them and what not to tell them. Because they're jerks. They're blind. They know nothing. And less than nothing. I'm imagining things. That's what you said. It's all inside my head. Right? Right? And maybe that's supposed to be comforting. Right, bro? But remember that movie? The one about the babysitter? Remember what it showed? That you want to keep the things out. You want them out there in the night. You don't want to let them in the house. You don't want to turn around and find them inside you. You don't want to turn around and find them inside with you as well. They're much worse when they're inside. In here with me now. In here where they're real. Real because I imagine them. To imagine means to invent. And what you invent becomes real. I'll be home soon, and I'll show you what I mean." He had drawn a sort of picture at the bottom of the letter, a kind of stick figure, seeming to reach out, maybe in friendship, maybe not. Only the figure had jagged lines scribbled all over, giving it a certain bulkiness. There's an expression I've heard in the old crime movies, dropping a dime on someone. It means basically tattling on them, ratting on him. It comes from the days when a call at a payphone cost 10 cents. You want to turn someone in, you drop in your dime and call the authorities. Well, you might say I dropped Wheezy's letter on him. I folded it up and put it back in the envelope. Took the bottle of Elmer's from the kitchen drawer, and carefully resealed the flap. I left the letter lying with the rest of the mail and went out for a bike ride. Mom was holding the envelope when I got home, as she hadn't opened it. She watched me as I pretended to read the letter for the first time. What does he say? I really shouldn't tell you. Tell me. I really shouldn't. She was as upset when she read it as I'd known she'd be. Before the week was out, it was decided that Wheezy wasn't coming home after all. And once again communication ceased. They're planning to run some tests on him, she announced one October evening over dinner, to see if they can find out what's wrong. I thought they agreed it was schizophrenia, I said, proud of my ease with the term. I'd be spending more time on the web. No one's sure, she said. Apparently a Swiss doctor has been doing some experiments. They're flying Wheezy to Switzerland? Awful as it sounds, I had hardly had a moment to recover from that twinge of jealousy. Oh, pfft, she said. I just hoping to use a similar method there. Something very up to date. That night, I googled around a bit and found out that a lot of stuff about the latest psychiatric research, it goes down in Europe. One series of experiments in particular kept coming up, going on somewhere outside Geneva. They involved electrical stimulation of certain regions of the brain. I saw lots of references to how surprising and controversial the results were, but I couldn't get through the technical jingo. Vestibular and proprioceptive and references to things like a disembriobastic or disembrioblastic neuroepithelial tumor. Why do they have to use such big words? I soon gave up. Even homework seemed more fun. Wheezy had always been better at science than I was. Maybe he could have figured it out if he hadn't, at this very moment, been on the receiving end of it. I got a glimpse of what those tests he was undergoing might be like when, less than 2 weeks later, I received some unexpected news. It was a chilly gray Saturday morning, and I had just arrived at my job at the Allied warehouse. Grinning as he ambled up to me, Phil, my co-worker, handed me a pale blueprint card. Oi, pal, he said. This showed up in the mailroom yesterday. It's addressed to you. I saw immediately what it was. One of those free postpaid cards that the company stuck in magazines alongside their ads. If you wanted further product information, you filled out the card with your name and address and dropped it in the mailbox. On the address side, above the words Allied Industries, someone had penciled my name. I recognized the handwriting. I think it's from that crazy brother of yours, said Phil. He stood regarding me curiously as I turned the card over. The printed words, please rush me free information about were not what caught my eye. Rather, it was a message scrawled in the spaces for name and address. They've got me wired up here. In more ways than one. It doesn't hurt, though. It's like a game. They tell me I'm producing good results. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. The card probably dated back to Wheezy's days in the mall room, or else he'd ripped it from a magazine at the hospital. It was a clever way of reaching me without a stamp, and without Mom knowing. I decided not to tell her. At least, not yet. At night, after dinner, I made myself a cup of instant cocoa and sat down at the computer, ready to give that European research another try. I skipped the technical details this time and tried to figure out what made those experiments so special. From what I could understand, the subjects had been epileptics and people with histories of anything and everything from migraine headaches to hallucinations. A hospital staff had implanted dozens of electrodes in the surface of these patients' brains, and on others, had experimented with something called low-intensity magnetic stimulation. While the patients were awake and fully conscious, the current was turned on for a couple of seconds, during which they were asked to report what they felt. That didn't seem especially new, but the researchers had described that when they stimulated an area called the angular gyrus, in a part of the brain an inch behind and above each ear, called the big word again. Temporoparietal, yes, that sounds about it, junction. They got some rather startling reactions. Most of the patients said they felt something floating, sometimes right there in the hospital room. The classic out-of-body experience. But in one case, a woman's at that, floating outdoors over hills and meadows. That sounded nice. Another saw and felt her legs moving when they weren't. Still another, identified only as patient 3, had a strange feeling that something, a shadowy figure, was behind her, and she kept turning her head to try and see it. When the left side of her brain was stimulated, she kept looking behind to her right, and when the right side was stimulated, she sensed the figure to her left. It is this mysterious presence that seems to have caused the biggest sensation, though the experiments had been going on for several years. They weren't well known till the British journal Nature published an article on them in 2006. Brain electrodes conjure up ghostly visions. I couldn't find that article on the web, but I found plenty of others. Some with headlines straight out of a horror movie. Creepy experiment exposes paranoia and sense of alien control, inducing the shadow self by stimulating the brain. Brain stimulation creates shadow person. The Chicago Tribune spoke of brain zaps and eerie feelings, and the London Daily Telegraph reported, "Shadow sheds light on schizophrenia." I felt rather proud when I saw that. I'd been right about Reezy after all. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Phantom Reads. The conclusion to Imaginary Things by Ted Klein will commence on next week's episode. Thank you again, and good night.